Welcome to DBChats, where we talk culture, fitness, police, and more. I'm Drew.
I'm Bryce.
Today we're going to talk about recent news in law enforcement with Alec Baldwin. So he was just charged, I guess we can bring up the actual news article, with involuntary manslaughter in Nevada because of an incident that took place. And, oh my God. Alec Baldwin, he was charged... I'm sorry. Well, this is sort of a overall thing. This was published, this is actually yesterday, 23rd. He was charged with involuntary manslaughter by Santa Fe Police Department, or Sheriff's Department, for basically the story was they were filming a movie called Rust, and he was given what he thought was a prop gun, and when he pulled the trigger, pointing it at the other actress, he ended up shooting and killing her. Now, the question comes into, why was there a prop gun on set? Why did nobody check this? Why was there live ammunition? Like, why was there a real gun given to Alec Baldwin during filming of a movie? And what should have been done?
It led to the death of a cinematographer.
Yeah. So, it was an accident. Alright, let's just start with this article. By all accounts, it was an accident everyone saw coming. But the questions and chaos surrounding the death of cinematographer Halyna Hutchins have only grown more numerous in the 18 months since the fatal accident. The Santa Fe District Attorney, Mary Cermak Altwiz, announced on January 19th that the county bring charges against Alec Baldwin for the cinematographer's death. Hutchins was killed in October 2021 near a ranch near Santa Fe after a prop gun Baldwin was holding accidentally discharged while filming the movie Rust. The chief weapons handler for the film was also charged, and the film's director, Joel Souza, was also non-fatally injured from the shooting. Cermak Altwiz announced in a brief public statement that Baldwin and armor Hannah Gutierrez-Reed would each be charged with 2 counts of involuntary manslaughter for their roles in Hutchins' death. The charges carry separate penalties of up to 5 years or 18 months in prison. On my watch, no one is above the law, and everyone deserves justice, Cermak Altwiz stated. We're trying to definitely make it clear that everybody is equal under the law, including A-list actors like Alec Baldwin. Special Prosecutor Andrea Reeb added to the New York Times, Baldwin is known for being a firebrand on and off set, with his role as Donald Trump on set SNL, raising the ire of many right-wing viewers who view him as emblematic of Hollywood's liberal elite. This development follows a lengthy investigation into the incident by Santa Fe Sheriff's Office that concluded in October 22. The report, which was crucial to Cermak Altwiz and Reeb's decision to file charges, focused on lapses in safety procedures in the film's highly criticized set, although it failed to determine the most crucial factor, exactly how loaded guns with live ammunition moved onto the set. The issue remains unsettled despite numerous investigations and lawsuits surrounding the production environment of the Rust set, alongside conflicting views of the accident itself. So, I thought the safest thing to do today was just bring up Nevada laws and see what the statute for involuntary manslaughter was, which I did earlier prior to this starting. So, oh man. So, involuntary manslaughter is the killing of a human being without any intent to do so in the commission of an unlawful act or lawful act, which probably might be produced as subsequent in a lawful manner. But where the involuntary killing occurs in the commission of an unlawful act is a consequence. You know what I need to do is I need to just zoom in on this.
Okay, let's break it down.
Okay.
Is the killing of a human being, check, she died, without any intent to do so, I don't think he had intent, check.
Mm-hmm.
In the commission of an unlawful act, was it an unlawful act?
No.
Or a lawful act, which probably might produce such a consequence in an unlawful manner. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
But where the involuntary killing occurs in the commission of an unlawful act, which and its consequences naturally tends to destroy the life of a human being or is committed in the prosecution of a felonious intent, the offense is murder. Okay, so that bottom part doesn't matter. Bottom offense is murder.
Yeah.
So, I mean, the first couple of things check with the statute.
Yes.
Involuntary manslaughter is killing of a human. Someone died without the intent to do so. He didn't have the intent to kill her. So that's the check. But now, in the commission of an unlawful act, and I can only speak off of South Carolina law, but if it's in the commission of an unlawful act, there has to be some type of knowledge. So if he were unlawfully handling, or like say unlawfully carrying a firearm, okay, so if he's on the set and what South Carolina has is like a pointing and presenting charge. So what he would be doing would be like pointing and presenting a gun at someone. That would be an unlawful act, and then he accidentally kills her. That would fit here, right?
Right.
But if I've got a water gun and I'm pointing it at someone, that's not pointing and presenting because it's not what the firearm is, the description of a firearm or defined as in that statute. Right. So in his mind, he's holding a prop gun. Again, I'm assuming that this is what he was told because this is what some of the articles are inferring, that he was told he's holding a prop gun. So if someone hands you something and says, this is a prop, it's not real, and he has no reason to believe it's real. He's on a TV set, he's, filming a movie, and he has no reason to believe that the firearm he's been handed is a real firearm and that it's got ammunition in it. So what's the unlawful act? So they've got the killing and the without the intent to do so, but what is the unlawful act that he's doing while that happens?
And that's where I'm coming into is I don't think they can actually do that, because even if they make an argument that it was neglectful, they need to actually make a different charge too to make this fit. Like, say, charge him with like a whatever their equivalent of a pointing and presenting charge or unlawful carry. But in his mind, you would have to prove that he knew that that was a real gun. Which Hollywood guns, the prop guns, they look and feel just like a real gun. Like we've used sim guns before, and even the CO2 ones that you use for like in a sim room, that feel like even when you pull the trigger, it feels like a real gun.
Yeah, I mean during our training, we have quarterly training at our department. During our training, we have a it's basically like a virtual reality type of screen, and we've got a gun that it's basically it's like the games, and we have a scenario that's played out on the screen. And if it comes down to us having to like a shoot no shoot situation on those in this training, if you've got to shoot, pull the gun and shoot because someone's firing at you, whatever the scenario is on the screen, that gun that you shoot, which shoots nothing out of it, weighs and feels and everything like our actual firearms, because it has to be it has to feel as real as possible. However, the point is, props and fake things and games and so on and so forth, they can all feel just like real guns. Yep. So how would he know? How would he tell the difference unless he fired the gun?
And we also have to take into consideration, this is very much a West Coast thing. We don't really deal with this here outside of like some big cities like New York or DC. Is what kind of leniency do they give for people during filming for movies or anything like that? Like, if you're an actor, obviously, even if you have a real gun, the law, like, how much leniency do they give you as far as in the law, as far as being an actor holding a weapon for a movie role versus having it just like a normal guy in the street. I'm not sure if they give exceptions or if there's certain policies they have to follow. Like in this example, he was pulling the trigger not as a person pulling a trigger on a person who's in an argument with or for whatever reason. He was doing it as a character in a movie, and I kind of think it blurs the lines a lot, especially on some of these things, as if he was intended to pull the trigger not as something as malicious as I pretend to pull the trigger, even if it's a fake gun, on somebody who I'm actually arguing with versus somebody who I'm in a role with.
Yeah. I would say that, and with the information that we have, I don't see how this charge can be made because I don't see how it's fitting this statute.
Right.
And, you know, we're here to look at things objectively on here and talk about things objectively. I know there's a lot of political arguing going on either side about, you know, certain views that Baldwin has and so on and so forth, but none of that matters in this situation. Like, looking at this objectively here, I don't see how this fits the statute. And I mean, unless there's some information they haven't released, I mean, for all we know, they could have interviewed someone that says, yeah, like, we told Baldwin that this was a real one. Don't touch this one. Grab the one in this box. And he went to that one and he grabbed that one because he wanted to play with the real gun. That would change things.
Right.
But based off of the information that we have, it doesn't seem like this fits the statute.
See if this article, I only saw like the first part of what we read as far as this article, but I'm hoping it gets more into the actual details of the circumstances.
Yeah.
Me personally, for full transparency, I don't really like Alec Baldwin as a person. I think he's a funny actor. I think he plays funny, goofy roles, but like his actual personal life, I think he's a pompous ass.
Okay.
I think but I don't really see this. But let's continue. At center stage of the case are two unsolvable mysteries. There are two questions this investigation does not seem poised to answer. Did Baldwin pull the trigger? And how did live rounds get on the set to begin with? I think that's probably the biggest decider here, is who brought live ammunition on set for our movie.
That's a very good question.
No one's disputing the broad facts of what happened on October 21st, 2021. Prior to filming the scene, Guatierrez Reed, a props assistant who doubled as the on-set armorer, examined the gun, which was a replica of a .45 long Colt. She looked inside the barrel, spun the barrel, visually confirmed what she believed were dummy bullets, fake bullets containing no live ammunition, and handed the gun over to the assistant director and production safety coordinator, David Halls, to take to the filming location. Halls avoided facing trial by pleading guilty to neglect, negligent use of a deadly weapon. So, okay. I guess this kind of comes into what we train as is anytime you're handed a gun, you treat it with safety. So if somebody hands you a gun, you're going to check to make sure it's a safe gun, unless you're in a very, very controlled training environment where you're basically have an instructor who is a trained armorer, and they clear it, show you however they're going to do it in front of everybody. I mean, when we're in training and we use like the fake guns, they actually will do it and they'll have somebody, not the armor, but somebody else there to check to say, hey, make sure there's no firing pin in this so we know it's a real gun or a fake gun. And then we continue on from there. Safety protocol calls for Guatierrez Reed to have checked all the bullets in front of Baldwin herself, and she claims to have intended to do so, asking Halls to let her know if Baldwin required her to come down to the filming location and directly examine the gun. But according to the lawsuit, later filed by Guatierrez Reed, the gun wasn't actually intended to be used in that afternoon's filming, and Hall was just sitting in with it, keeping it in case it became necessary for later use, which it did when Baldwin decided to rehearse an unscheduled scene that required the gun. At that point, Hall should have summoned Guatierrez Reed to come back for further examination of the bullets inside the gun. Instead, he yelled, "Cold gun," cold meaning the gun was not loaded with live ammunition, to warn the crew that the gun was about to be discharged. Then he handed it over to Baldwin. While Baldwin was following Hutchins' instructions to aim the gun toward the camera, the gun discharged, striking both her and Susan. So, this is the guy that pleaded guilty, right?
Halls,
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, he should have checked it. If he's gonna call that it's a cold gun, he needs to check it.
Absolutely. So that is negligence. I mean, that it is.
Yeah. So he was in his full right.
And it was his job and his responsibility to ensure that gun was safe.
Yeah. See, I don't know what the actual statute is, but if it's similar to ours, I mean, that seems like a good one for Baldwin as well, because he was handed what was said to be a cold gun, which was called out in front of the whole crew.
However, it does say up there that,
this person should have brought it to Baldwin.
That she was supposed to check all the bullets in front of him.
Right.
And she claimed to do so. Well, if she did that, then there shouldn't have been live ammunition in there.
Right.
And then asking Halls to let her know if Baldwin required her to come down to the filming location and directly examine the gun. So on and so forth. And also, Baldwin decided to rehearse an unscheduled scene that required the gun.
Mm-hmm.
If he decides to rehearse an unscheduled scene that requires a gun,
mm-hmm.
Sure, but all this, if he makes that decision, then he does need to make the decision that all the safety protocols that come along with that occur as well.
Right. Let's see. Baldwin has always been adamant that he never pulled the trigger. He explained that he would never pull the trigger on a prop gun while it was pointed at another human, though safety protocol forbid pointing any prop gun at any human for any reason, and that the gun discharged independently. He insisted claims that he cocked the gun, that is, pulled the hammer back, and then when he released it, the gun suddenly discharged on its own. FBI forensic reports on the same gun apparently contradicted Baldwin, suggesting that this particular prop gun could only be discharged by pulling the trigger after the gun was cocked or partially cocked. I don't know how much experience you have with shooting revolvers, but those like older style ones where you actually cock the hammer back and then pull the trigger, when they're actually cocked back like that, it's like
it's very light.
Yeah.
It's very, very light.
Like, I think you can like shake the gun and cause it to discharge.
Yeah.
If you're...
Or he could have grazed the trigger. I mean, him saying, I didn't pull the trigger, he may not have had the intent to,
mm-hmm.
but if you're cocking that back and you like graze it with your
mm-hmm.
finger, the lightest bit of pressure
Yep.
will fire that off.
Yeah. Yet those reports, according to Baldwin's attorney, downplay the fact the FBI investigators tried repeatedly to discharge it and were able to do so either by pulling the trigger or through any other means. The gun fired in testing only one time without having to pull the trigger, when the hammer was pulled back and the gun broke in two different places, attorney Luknika stated. The FBI was unable to fire the gun in any prior test, even when pulling the trigger, because it was in such poor condition. God. If both these claims are accurate, then the question of how the gun discharged is a complete toss-up, since it seems both improbable that the gun could have discharged without being fired, and yet equally inoperable that the gun could... I'm sorry? Improbable, I'm sorry.
You're good.
That the gun could have been fired to begin with. That's something that'll have to just come out in discovery, because that's something the FBI is saying, and then the other thing is something that the attorneys are saying, his defense attorneys are saying. So
I saw where the FBI was saying that it was that they tested it and it was impossible for it to have
mm-hmm.
gone on without the trigger being pulled.
Right. So the full report will be something that'll have to come out in discovery. Again, it's if they got a gun that's in such poor condition, like everything about this just seems strange to me. Like, was it purposely made in, like, brought to be in poor condition for the movie, or?
I wonder too, because it says it's a replica
mm-hmm.
of a Colt 45. I think it said.
Yeah.
Um, so, I mean, the movie's called Rust.
Right.
So,
well, it doesn't mean everything in the movie's
I
Rust.
mean, I don't know, you know? So, I don't know. I don't know what the movie was supposed to be about. But I could see how they would try to rough up the gun to make it seem like it was old or worn.
Again,
but it shouldn't have live ammunition in it.
It should have live ammunition in it. If you're trying to make the gun look bad, you could do that on the outside of the gun while maintaining the internal mechanics of the gun.
Yeah.
I mean, you can hit it with like a brush, like a metal bristle brush, and toss it with the woods or
dirt
something.
And shit.
But as far as the internal components, that stuff you got to make sure, especially if you're using it for anything where it could possibly be pointing at somebody else, then you want that to not have these issues.
I mean, I assume there should be some type of paperwork on the gun,
right,
prior to it being used that day, so they would need to produce the documentation that the gun, how old the gun was, and that it worked properly and effectively, test fired, whatever the case may be. So if it'd be interesting that if there's documentation that shows that it was firing perfectly fine prior to this incident, and then when that gun goes into evidence with the FBI, that it's now all of a sudden having issues.
Well, I'm not sure exactly how in-depth Hollywood gets with their prop, or well, in this case, I mean, if this gun is a real gun, then maybe it wasn't really well tracked as far as compared to a prop gun would have been.
Yeah.
But the assumption that Baldwin must have unsafely handled the weapon partially led to Hutchins' family to file a lawsuit against him in February 2022. That suit, which has since been settled, named Baldwin, Gutierrez-Reed, and the ammo supplier, and the litany of Rust producers, but took as its primary complaint the allegation that Baldwin recklessly shot and killed Helena Hutchins, and that he, along with the staff, had failed to perform industry standards, safety checks, and follow the basic gun safety rules while using real guns to produce the movie Rust, with fatal consequences. Baldwin filed his own lawsuit in November 22 against Gutierrez-Reed and the Rust producers, alleging that they were culpable for handing him. Is that an L? I'm sorry. Handing him a loaded gun to begin with, and he has a point. Well, that's very opinionated of you, Mr. Writer. This is why sometimes I can't read Block's ones, but this is the most in-depth one that recent they had. If the gun had contained blanks when discharged, if it had actually been a cold gun when Hall's handed over to Baldwin, Hutchins would still be alive. So how did the gun filled with live ammunition make it onto the set? This is where things get a lot more complicated and we have a lot more finger pointing. So as far as this part here, that is a civil suit. So it shouldn't have any real bearing as far as his criminal liability. Obviously, if you've settled a civil suit, it doesn't look good, but they have a different standards in civil proceedings than you'll do in criminal, because in criminal it's proof beyond a reasonable doubt. So this doesn't really do. Plus, Baldwin's also suing, so it seems like there's a lot of civil suits going on all over the place in this situation. No one can explain how the live ammo wound up on set. When someone obviously physically brought live ammunition on the set, no one seems to know who it was. I'm sorry?
What is that interesting?
Yeah. A search warrant filed in October 2021 speculated that Gutierrez-Reed might have accidentally purchased live ammunition along with dummy bullets from the gun supplier PDQ Arms Prop LLC. And the owner, Seth Kinney, a Gutierrez-Reed, speculated the investors that live ammo had been mixed in with dummy bullets. In January 2022, she filed a lawsuit against the company responsible for supplying guns and ammunition to the film production. The suit paints a picture of chaotic production full of underpaid and overworked staff. Gutierrez-Reed was paid just $7,500 for doing her two jobs on the micro-budget set. It contains ominously passive language about a source of ammo indicating that a mysterious box of dummy rounds for the prop gun appeared on set the day of the shooting. You know, it's actually funny. If it's the FBI, they should be able to just bring up the receipts for
Everything.
and see if she actually bought live ammo versus the stuff like that's all that. Especially nowadays, people buy everything credit card.
Right.
So, and that company should have receipts. So it seems like something they should be able to figure out, in my opinion. But I'm not in the FBI. Quaterus Reed all but directly implies in the suit, which appears to be stalled, that the production's primary prop manager conspired with Kenny to bring live ammunition on the set in order essentially set Quaterus Reed up. This, she argues, was because Kenny and the prop manager both resented her because she had criticized the prop manager for her role in one of the 2 previous accidental discharges on set.
Oh!
So there was 2 prior discharges.
Accidental discharges on set.
It sounds to me this movie production had a massive issue to begin with. Prior to this.
Oh.
However, as part of the discovery in the lawsuit, texts from months earlier between Kenny and Cortez Reed were made public. Texts from different movies set in which Cortez Reed expressed her intent to be using prop guns to fire hot rounds or live ammunition after hours and not while on set. So they plan on going shooting after work, I guess. Okay. Not only that, but report by the Rap alleged that earlier in the morning of the incident, crew members on the set took prop guns, which aren't supposed to be used to fire anything but blanks, to use in a game of plinking, which involves discharging live ammo in rounds of target practice. So Gutierrez Reed and the person responsible for mixing ammo was it assorted crew members who took the guns, fired them with live ammo, then replaced them without anyone being the wiser. This is all murky as everything else. The only thing reported makes clear all this confusion took place in the set with disastrous working conditions. I'll let you comment on that because
it's a lot.
That's a lot.
So Reed is claiming that someone set her up and just put everyone at risk.
I found this on the web.
Okay, Siri. Put everyone at risk just to set her up because Reed had previously criticized that person for being negligent and there being 2 prior accidental discharges where someone was not killed. Then she's also claiming that the company that she bought the dummy rounds and the live ammunition from mixed some of it up. Yet she's also claiming that some crew members occasionally would take prop guns that were not supposed to be taken from the set and shoot them afterwards. But there's also text messages between her and someone else that showed her interest in using the prop guns to shoot live ammunition after hours while on set. So I don't know what's true and what's not true. However, these 4 different wild accusations or whatever, shots in the dark by this woman, seem to make her look not good, in my opinion.
5. They also say that other crew members were using the guns to fire.
Yeah, that was one of my 4.
Oh, it wasn't one of your 4?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I missed
No,
it.
you're good.
Yeah, it just seems like this entire culture on this set was just the most irresponsible people that... I guarantee you half the people in this thing don't have experience with guns at all.
Probably not. But this particular person, this Reed person, in their lawsuit is pointing fingers at every other person and every other entity involved in this except their self. Interesting.
Yeah. And so So I saw a couple of things on this beforehand, like when it first came out, and a lot of people in Hollywood were criticizing this set because of exactly all of this, how irresponsible it seems everybody from
2
top
prior
on.
discharges.
Yeah, it was. One of the things they said is a lot of actors, like A-list actors who have been in the film industry for decades, they would say, anytime that you're handed a weapon, you check it, and even if you're just handing it off to somebody else, you want to make sure that that gun that you receive isn't a live gun.
Yeah.
Well, it seems to have gone through multiple hands before it got to Alec Baldwin first.
Yep.
And even him, that was one of the things, I can't remember which actor it was. I don't know if it was Keanu Reeves or something. That he said, like, even when he's handed a gun as the actor, he still checks all the guns to make sure that it's a prop gun versus a live gun. So, including the actor should be, is responsible for that.
Yeah, responsible gun handling.
Yeah. So, that's something that people are criticizing. Whether or not that should be made criminal, I guess, is sort of the debate to be had. You could say that Alec Baldwin, the Hall, Gutierrez Reed, all of the crew, how irresponsible they were, civilly, which I'd say sue all of them. Like, all of them are culpable at that point. But as far as criminal stuff, I really only see the armorer, the Gutierrez Reed, as far as someone who should be criminally held liable.
Well, here's my question. Now that we know, and reading further, that Baldwin changed the what they were going to be rehearsing to another scene that required this firearm. Did he know that this was a real firearm?
That's something that could, I mean,
because that could actually change it to an unlawful act. If he knew it was a real firearm, then it is unlawful to point and present a real firearm or so on and so forth. And, well, again, in South Carolina, I'm assuming that Nevada has a similar statute. Or some type of, well, it definitely has a neglectful handling statute because we're seeing it right there. So I'm assuming, if he knew that it was a real gun and he pointed it and presented it towards someone, so on and so forth, or handled it negligently, then I could see this happening during an unlawful act, and I could actually see the manslaughter charge or involuntary manslaughter charge. I could see him satisfying the requirements for that statute then.
Yeah. I will shoot back on that and say, to prove what he knows in court, I don't see that as a feasible task, especially with someone who has as good of a defense. I'm sure he has the best defense attorneys he can get.
Yeah.
So proving beyond a reasonable doubt that he knew that it was a thing, it's something you could speculate, but I think it'd be very difficult to prove in criminal court.
Well, they'd either have to have several witness statements testifying that he did, or some type of documentation that this gun came with, some type of documentation of you need to sign off that you understand this is a real live gun or a real gun, so on and so forth, which they should have those things, but it sounds like there's a lot of things that they should have on this set that they didn't. However, wasn't he, I could be wrong, wasn't he one of the producers or didn't he take part in the production of the movie as well, not only just the actor in the movie?
I actually don't know. Well, it said that the director was, crap, I just saw it up here. It was a famous director. I can't remember. But he could have been a producer. I mean, especially someone who's been in the business for as long as he is, he has, then it's pretty common for a lot of these top tier, like A-list actors to be also producers in their movies.
I would say, I could be wrong about that, but I want to say that I have read that at some point in the past. But that would be probably something to add to it as well. If he was some part of the production of this movie, then he would be in a way responsible for knowing about these props, what's real, what's not, and so on and so forth. So it really is interesting to see. You know, I could see this case being an interesting case.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of it comes down to proving who know what at the time, and as far as criminal liability, that's such a high standard to prove. But you've already got one person who's pled guilty to neglect, which I'm guessing is a significantly lower jail time than manslaughter.
Yeah, they probably got probation.
But no, I just think it's one of those situations where they might have overcharged the suspect for it, and they might get off because it's a higher standard to prove in court.
They may have overcharged, and they also may try to plea it down.
Fair enough. But let's continue. Most public information about the conditions of Rust's set come from a report completed in April 2022 by the New Mexico Occupational Health and Safety Bureau. That's not quite OSHA, but it's almost. As a result, the OHSB's investigation of the agency fined Rust about $137,000 for workplace safety violations, the maximum amount allowed under the state law. My question is, if there wasn't a maximum, how high that fine would have gone.
Right.
Because you find that that's actually really common in Wall Street, is they'll fine people the maximum allotted amount, and it's like pennies compared to what
it would have
been. The OHSB report found multiple problems on Rust's on-set production environment, concluding that the production demonstrated plain indifference to the safety of employees, failed to follow the company's safety procedures, which likely would have prevented the accident from occurring, and did not ensure their own safety procedures were followed at the worksite. OHSB also castigated specific producers for ignoring their employees' repeated voiced concerns about on-site safety and rushing the employees who were tasked with ensuring that safety. One employee who voiced concerns and was overridden was Cortez Reed. Well, was this after or before a lot of the incidents?
And I'm not impressed with this Reed person, but okay.
No. Hannah was tasked with doing two jobs, including props assistant and the very important job as armor, but was not given adequate time and training days to do so. Cortez Reed's attorney told ABC News, despite repeated requests or the respect required of the armorer's position and responsibilities.
But was fine texting another person asking to take props that were not ever supposed to be loaded with live ammunition, to take them off set, and that were never supposed to leave the set, to take them off set and to shoot them afterwards.
Well, if she wasn't properly trained as the armorer and was just rushed onto the thing, it was probably one of those situations of you got somebody who's still not quite mature enough for the task and was given a lot of power, and they just try to flex that power. Like, okay, cool, I just got access to all these guns, who wants to have fun?
Yeah.
Rather than ease them into the job and properly train them. Indeed, a week before the shooting, Rust's line producer, Gabrielle Pickle, emailed Cortez Reed to reprimand her for spending too much time on her armory duties, which included inspecting all weapons and ensuring the safety, and not enough on her other duties as prop assistant. Cortez Reed replied, "Since we started, I've had a lot of days where my job should only be to focus on the guns and everyone else's safety, and that there were working guns on the set every day, and those are ultimately going to be a priority, because when they are not, that's when the dangerous mistakes can happen." Which, let's be real, she's right. She, right there, that's actually a pretty good defense if they have that as a text or email, you know what I mean? According to the OHSB's reports, there were two other accidental discharges on set, both on October 16th, 5 days before the incident that killed Hutchins. The third dangerous incident involving a special effect explosive device accidentally exploding. It was partially in response to these incidents and the one Hutchins camera system. Lane Looper quit the job the day before Hutchins' death, citing rampant safety violations in his resignation email, along with many other exploitative work conditions. So, everybody seems to be involved in this. This is like all of the worst people in safety working together. Another crew member, Jonas Huerta, also resigned the same day, again citing exploitive, unsafe, and rush working conditions. I also feel anxious on set, he wrote in his resignation email. I've seen firsthand our AD, the assistant director Halls, rush to get shots and skips over important protocols. This is hilarious. Like, everything was going wrong. And I don't know if it's Hollywood or if it's the state laws, but I wonder how in-depth these protocols are. I'm guessing with how old of a organization a lot of these production companies are, they've got some pretty thick handbooks of safety procedures.
They should.
I'm sure they're gonna change a couple
protect
after this.
themselves, but
Yeah. The charges related to Baldwin seem to involve specific act in handling the weapon rather than his broader role as the firm's producer. Oh, look at that. He was a producer. But the lack of charge files against any of the other producers on set, several of whom more directly oversaw the frazzled, unsafe filming conditions that led to the multiple accidental weapons discharge, is puzzling. The OHSB report criticized specific producers, including head producer Ryan Smith, for failing to take workplace safety concerns seriously despite repeated complaints by staff. Pickle also faced scrutiny for actively scolding Cortez Reed, including ordering her off armory duty and limiting her time spent training the cast and crew on how to safely handle weapons. This is something that I see everywhere. People at the top, I bet you that this guy is the big money guy right here, Mr. Smith, and he's getting a lot of complaints from people who are making near minimum wage, and he's not taking them seriously. It seems baffling given the type of evidence that Santa Fe's prosecutors opted not to bring charges of negligence against the producers. Charges that seem clearly provable according to the available evidence. The charges of involuntary manslaughter against Baldwin and Gutierrez Reed seem much harder to prove given how the confusion of the roles were. Though the uncertainty hasn't quashed right-wing pundits like Tucker Carlson from arguing that Baldwin embodies Hollywood's hypocrisy in decrying gun violence only to defend their own right to use guns in entertainment.
I don't really care about talking about his
political leanings is irrelevant.
Yeah.
If we jailed people by that, then we would live in China. As for who supplied the live ammo, the new changes don't seem to take up mystery at all. An attorney for Cortez Reed told CNN in August that they had repeatedly asked investigators to do forensic testing on the bullets to try to determine who actually handled them, but authorities had declined. And conducting such an investigation at this late date would prove likely fruitless. That's kind of where we stood. It's possible that new clarifying information will be revealed during the trial, though the likelihood of such trial happening anytime soon seems faint. Baldwin's lawyer, Nekes, has vowed to fight these charges, and he told the New York Times Mr. Baldwin has no reason to believe that there was a live bullet in the gun, or anywhere in the movie set. He said he relied on the professionals with whom he worked and assured him the gun did not have live rounds. It's good defense, in my opinion, but...
Yeah, but he should have insured himself.
He should have insured himself. That's some gun safety stuff. But professionals for whom Baldwin worked with there, at least on the set, likely on many others, underpaid, overworked, harangued by equally frazzled supervisors, and cutting corners at every turn to save money and time. 5 days before Hutchins' death, the International Alliance of Theatrical Stage Employees narrowly avoided an employee strike in response to pervasive exploitative conditions through Hollywood, including the prevalence of minimum wage gigs, stretched workers, and strenuous labor conditions, and the wide gender gap in the pay rates and opportunities. It's literally everything we talked about earlier. I feel like we're just predicting this.
Yeah.
Oh my god. Hutchins' death, as tragic as it seems to be, the latest culmination of terrible working conditions not found not just on set but throughout the industry. The advent of streaming media and the strain of supplying content in the post-pandemic world and the widespread culture of demanding tireless work for little pay all contribute to the kind of callous disregard for safety and for employees that result in the worst working environment. While unionization efforts are bringing some meaningful change to the industry, Hutchins' death arguably stands as a far greater indictment of the industry as a whole than individuals. Again, it's the same in everywhere else in our economy. Is you get a lot of overworked, underpaid workers and people trying to cut corners.
Yeah.
And in this case, it resulted in death.
Training takes money.
Yeah.
Paying people to do a decent job takes more money. Or paying them what they're worth takes money. Going the extra step and the manpower that it takes to go through certain things, it takes longer, which takes money because you have to pay people longer. I mean,
I think that there's going to be whether I think there needs to be a financial change in the incentive structure of Hollywood, because I guarantee you that Alec Baldwin and then some of the other actors that were involved, they're making a few $1 million to do this job, while there's some people there that, like they said here, working minimum wage on a set. That's not a sustainable economy for such a massive industry. And
yeah, being in the movie making business and making minimum wage is actually pretty absurd to even hear.
yeah, and I bet you a lot of them live. The West Coast is way more expensive than the East Coast, so I'm not sure what the minimum wage there. But even if it's $15 an hour, there's no way you could live on minimum wage.
$15 an hour in Nevada or California is just not sustainable whatsoever.
It's like $5 in the Southeast.
Right.
It's nothing. Like people. And here's the thing too is, you get what you pay for. If you're paying minimum wage for people to take the job, you're going to get minimum wage quality employees.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's what a lot of like Google found, was they gave super high paying jobs when they were at their peak, and they got the best of the best in that industry, and that
no one's going to want to risk being reprimanded or fired or whatever when they're making so much money. They don't want to risk losing that.
Exactly.
And they know that if they risk losing that and you're that well paid and treated very well, that there's going to be a line of people waiting to take your spot, and someone can easily replace you if you are doing a poor job. So you're going to give your best efforts when you're appreciated, because that also makes you happy, and when you know that you could be easily replaced and you've got it good, and you're not going to have it that good if you leave and try to go somewhere else.
Right. But if you're making minimum wage and you sort of tip the scales the other way, where you don't pay me enough to handle that, to deal with this,
Or to care.
you're going to get that quality from everybody. And honestly, it probably costs more money as far to have low retention, to retrain somebody to do a job, than it would to just pay somebody decent salary to begin with and get that back, rather than have to rehire and retrain somebody.
Yeah.
But that's just my opinion on that part of things. But it sounds like everything involving this is a disaster. Like, you got a girl who's tragically killed. You've got an entire set with lots of issues. You've got people held up not only civilly but criminally. This is like some of the worst of the Hollywood culture, like all embroiled together.
And it was a recipe for, and it completed a dumpster fire.
Yeah.
And someone lost their life because of it. And they had 2 warnings.
Mm-hmm.
2 prior warnings of accidental discharges, where that should have been the biggest wake-up call. The first one should have been the biggest wake-up call, like, holy shit, someone could have died just now.
Mm-hmm.
And it didn't happen once, but it happened twice.
Yeah.
And on the 3rd time, someone died.
Yeah. I mean, take us, for instance, in law enforcement. You have an accidental discharge, that is a big deal.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Some agencies, people get fired for that.
Yeah, and it's incredible too, because and not to get all whatever about this, but I mean, it's taken very, very seriously when it comes to us. And yes, we should be trained. We are trained, and we should be handling firearms just as responsible as somebody else. But a movie set with, famous actors, like, no one knows anything about it, and they keep going as if it never happened. No big deal.
Honestly, especially if you're working in that industry, you should have experience with guns. Like, everybody who has to touch a weapon, or even a prop weapon in this field, should have experience, because, like I said earlier, every time you're handed a gun, you check it to make sure it's live or if it's a real gun. You check, before you even fire a gun, you want to make sure that it's a functioning gun. Like, there's no reason to have a gun that's in such bad condition that it could blow up in your face. I mean, like, everything that's happened in this should not have happened. But we'll see. I wonder if the movie will actually even come out after this.
I doubt it. But yeah, Helena Hutchins should have never lost her life due to the extreme negligence that occurred on that movie set.
Yeah. And I hope those producers get destroyed in civil lawsuits for this, because they don't deserve to be in charge of this.
No.
Anything else you want to do to top this one off?
If you're going to handle a gun, get trained and handle it properly. Don't be negligent.
Okay. Good thing to go by.
Yeah.
So, fitness.
Fitness!
I really want to make the joke, but I can't.
Don't make the joke.
I'm not going to. So, I think this came up because a lot of people ask is, how do you start your fitness journey?
Yeah.
You are much more crude than I am. Yours was just go to the gym.
Of how I started mine?
No, that's whenever people ask you, just that's basically the only
Oh,
thing
when we
to
were
say.
talking about it. Well, I was just like, my whole thing of it is just physically get yourself there.
Mhm.
Because that can be what's so hard for people. But yeah, that's what could be so hard for people, is just getting there. Because they're so intimidated and they're so scared. So, like, I'm not, like, doing a Khloe Kardashian or whatever of, like, just get your ass out, or was it Kim? Whichever one of them did that thing. But no, I'm just saying, like, just get there. Once you get there and you get over that hurdle, then go to the next hurdle, So that was kind of, like, my point of, like, just get there. Once you're inside, try something, It's just kind of, like, helping. People get so overwhelmed, I think, that are new to the gym and intimidated by the gym, that they're looking at everything. Like, they're not looking at, they're like, oh my God, how do I get to, like, to do some of the things that the most experienced people are doing. Like, don't worry about that. Just one step at a time. Get to the gym. Once you're in the gym, maybe you just go for a walk. And then after you go for a walk, like, maybe leave that day. You don't even have to do anything else. And the next day, get there. Maybe go for a walk and then lift a dumbbell, or, something like that. It's just, like, one step at a time. Get yourself more comfortable and don't, like, overwhelm yourself with everything at one time.
I like to say start with something you like. If you're just starting out in fitness, local YMCAs, I think, are the best place to start, because they have pools, they have, like, racquetball courts, they got tracks, they got everything you could possibly want as far as fitness. And if you're somebody who likes just to run the track, get a membership, run the track a few days a week, and then work your way up to, like, something else. Play tennis, go and actually pick up weights. Do what you enjoy, and then expand on it. Shut up.
Anyway, go ahead.
That's really, honestly, if you want to start, that's actually a great way to do it. Is just physical, especially if you're in your, like, 20s or 30s. A lot of people did, like, some sports when they were kids, whether it be soccer or football or something like that. So you got some idea of how to start. It's just getting out there and doing it, and starting with something you like, and then just expanding on it.
Yeah.
One thing I think that it's sort of a problem in the fitness culture is we really do make it intimidating for new people, because we don't really notice it, but when we go to the gym, we see the same people pretty much all the time.
Yeah.
That is not a representation of the average person, the gym goer. So when you lay down and you see somebody who's bench pressing 225, that seems intimidating when you could barely get 135 up for one rep. Now, you got to think of it too, is those are the people that go to the gym all the time. That's like...
They've got a lot of experience.
They've got a lot of experience. That's what they do for their that's their thing that they do. I'd say how much do you think of people actually go to the gym? Like less than 10% of the population?
That is like regularly part of their routine. Not a lot. I mean, there's people that'll be there like, every once in a while, or who will go and like sporadically, but people that are on like a serious regimen of being in there 5 times a week, it's not as many people as you would think.
Right. So one of the things I wanted to bring up was bench press. We'll just bring up the thing I found. It was average bench press by weight for people. This was a good chart. Healthline did it. I'm not sure exactly how they went through their methodology as far as this, but they kind of broke it down like this. Get your weight, untrained, novice, intermediate, advanced, elite. Elite athletes are the ones, those are the 1% of fitness. Like, they're the top of the top. Advanced are people who probably go quite often, probably do supplements. Intermediates are the guys who go 3 to 4 times a week. Novice are people who are just starting, and untrained are people who just don't go to the gym at all. But like the benchmark that a lot of people go for is 135. But like for an untrained person, 135 doesn't start to like 200-pound person, which means...
And this is for men.
This is for men. And then it obviously drops significantly as you go up, but like my body weight's, I'm about 175. So I kind of fall into this little category here of, let's see, what is that?
The 165 to 181 range?
Yeah, so here, but I do just over 225, so I kind of fall in the intermediate advanced range. But you got to think, like, that's me. I go to the gym very often. I'm obviously not the top elite 1% competing on ESPN, but I know my way around the gym. I know some good things.
Comfortable in the gym.
I'm comfortable, but there's some people who probably have never been to an actual weight room before, and I think it's hard for people to actually get into that mentality.
Yeah, it is important to bring up like those types of like these numbers, because I mean, if you scroll back up, what would you say just an average person doesn't go to the gym, whatever, just an average size guy, like what would he weigh? Like 165 ish?
Average size guys, heavier than that, probably like around 200.
You think so?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Americans are really fat. Sorry, we have an obesity epidemic. I think that's a fair shot.
So, an untrained person, I mean, completely untrained, doesn't go to the gym. They're brand new stepping in, hitting 135. It's a good amount of weight. So, the point of that is to say that if you see people putting up 225, like, that's not normal for an average person. Like, you have to look at what level you're at. If this person has been training this amount of time, then they're going to be at the level that that time and that training gets put into.
I just want to bring this one up.
Yeah.
This was the other one I saw. What percentage of gym goers that can bench 225?
Not me.
As far as gym goers, about 2%. And then of all people, it's going to be significantly less. I think they said it was around 1%. So, like, that's a good amount of weight for people to put up.
Yeah.
I mean, if only 2% of people are doing it, which means, where's 225 start? First time you see it is right here. So, someone who weighs 220 pounds putting up 225.
Would be an intermediate level.
So that's like someone basically lifting their body weight, and that's an intermediate lifter. So, I mean, that's a very good amount of weight to put up for somebody who's, that big of a person. I mean, 225 is a pretty decent-sized person. And lifting your own body weight, I think, is pretty impressive for most people. After,
Thank you.
Yes, you're welcome. As you can see, for women, the numbers are slightly different. 135, it doesn't even show up until, right around the 200-pound mark, and then drops significantly from there. I mean, here, 135 at 148, and 135 at 114. So, it's just...
225 doesn't even show up for women.
Yeah, so...
They're like, women aren't even going to hit 225. Watch me hit 225 just because of this chart right here.
I would
Screw
love
you, chart.
You know what?
I'm
With
gonna
how
hit
fast your
225
bench
one.
press has gone up in the past few months, I'd like to see that. But no, I think people get intimidated, and I'd love to see more people go to the gym and skew these numbers back the other way to like bring these numbers up. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
The other thing too, I figured I'd ask you this.
Uh-huh.
How do you feel about things like personal trainers or subscribing for workout plans, stuff like that?
Subscribing to a workout plan, I think is perfectly fine, just given that you have the right plan.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you need to research what you're buying and who you're getting it from and their qualifications and so on and so forth. But I think that it's perfectly acceptable, and I recommend doing that because I actually think being on a program is the most beneficial for somebody that wants to see real results. I personally don't think that just going in there and just, willy-nilly, just doing things off the top of your head really is the best, will get you the best results. In my personal experience, it hasn't. I've always gotten better results when I'm actually following some type of a program. So I'm very pro following a program, but you need to make sure that you're following the right one and that you're properly vetting who you're going through. I mean, there's little influences or whatever all over the internet. You can just buy something from them that they just toss together because they've got, 200,000 followers because they got a BBL, and we've talked about this, the liposuction and a BBL, and they're like, oh, I did this because I did freaking 10 sets of or 3 sets of 10 squats at whatever, and it's not actually a very good plan, or it's going to get you the best results. So very pro following a program. However, I am pro trainers as well. I mean, I've had several trainers over the last few years, but I think that you need to vet the trainers as well. And I think that, I don't think that it's always best to just go to your random commercial gym and be like, I want a trainer, and then get a trainer from there, because it's just not always, you're not always going to get the best quality person. I think that you need to see their results with their past clients, see their certifications and what their specialties and what their focuses and concentrations are within training, because all personal trainers don't do everything. If you want to train for a bodybuilding competition, you're sure as hell not going to get that from, training for that with just some run-of-the-mill whatever trainer that you can find here, there, whatever. There's specific trainers that train for that. You're not going to get the best, some trainers are not going to get you to your highest strength level. Some, they might just do lowering body fat, and some might not get you to lower body fat because they're bigger on strength. You have to find what their strengths are and vet them versus your goals. So I'm pro personal trainers as well, but I would be very, very picky, and I would look at their past and what their portfolio, like a lot of personal trainers use Instagram to market to new clients. And so I would look at that and see that some before and afters. I would see if I'm trying to increase my strength, I would see if I've had this client for 6 months, what did their bench or their squat or whatever start out at, and what is it at now. If I'm looking for bodybuilding competition, I would see how did this person look before their competition versus how they looked in their competition, and how well did they do in that competition and things like that, and do they offer posing, and do they all of these other things. So I think it's just really important to vet the personal trainer and not just go out and pay anyone to train you just because they've got a certification in hand.
Yeah, I think I agree for you for the most part.
I feel the same.
I feel the same with programs. Is each program kind of has its own specialty. If you want to be a bodybuilder, there's a specific program for that you need to follow. Then, of course, with that, you have to get into dieting and all that stuff. Yeah. But that's a little more specific. If you're just trying to build strength, if you're trying to burn fat, you got to find the right program that works for you. If you're a beginner, I think that again we fall into this category of it's very overwhelming because there is a lot of content out there as far as fitness. A lot of influencers, like you said, they'll put out their version of stuff which works for them, might not work for you. It's hard to parse through a lot of it. I'm indifferent towards personal trainers as well. I've seen it work for some people. I've seen it not work for other people. I think a lot of that will end up falling into you get what you pay for, where if you're going to spend money on a top tier personal trainer, you're probably going to get a pretty good experience. Mm-hmm. If you go to your local Golds and you just get some dude who's got like a couple hundred clients that he sees a week and a certificate, I mean, he's probably just going to do the bare minimum to get you through whatever plan that he has in place for you. I'm not going to lie. Well, last year I did CrossFit for a year.
Yeah.
I actually think that's a good starting place for it because you got someone who's a coach who's going to walk you through things. They're going to make sure you got good form. And depending on how good of the gym you go to, they're not going to force you into doing a lot of weight at first. They want you to get the form down. And so for like the big lifts, like deadlifts, bench, squats, they're going to make sure you got the form down before. But then when you do get the form down, they're going to harp at you like, yo, put some more weight on there.
Yeah.
I think that's a good starting. It's more expensive, I'll say that. You got to have a little bit more of a disposable income to do those classes. But I think it's a good starting place if you're somebody who doesn't know where to begin.
I will say, I didn't mention this when I was talking about trainers as well. Mm-hmm. When you mentioned CrossFit, that is another thing that a personal trainer could be good for, is whether it's CrossFit or another type, is that accountability role too, and that motivation too. Mm-hmm. So if you don't have that self-discipline initially, mm-hmm. or that motivation in yourself to go when you don't feel like going, if you have an appointment with a personal trainer, they will hold you accountable, or you're going to lose money because you don't go to your appointment. So that is a way of holding yourself accountable, and then they will push you. Mm-hmm. So if you're like the type of person that's like, I'm just going to do this many and I'm going to stop there or whatever, and I'm going to do this weight, and you're not pushing yourself to do better, one, you're not going to get results. So they're going to push you, and you'll see better results as well if you're just not at that point where that's what you're good at yet, is pushing yourself.
Yeah. Another thing too, bring a friend.
Yeah.
It's easier to just blow off the gym when you got nobody else to rely on. There's a few days where I sat down and I'm like, you know what, I'm just going to play video games today. And then you'll text me like, hey, what time are we going to the gym? And I'm like, well, all right, I guess I'll go today. It doesn't go as much the other way.
You're going to the gym today.
I know. It doesn't usually go the other way. It's usually her getting on me. I'm the lazy one. She's the active one. But, yeah, it's good to find somebody at your skill level, because it is hard when you have two people of differing skill levels to work out with, because you've got one person who might be on a heavy grind that they want to like really get their weight up, and then you got somebody who like is just learning how to squat, and it really slows down that person, and I think it does kind of get frustrating if you're constantly having to teach somebody how to do stuff.
Yeah.
Rather than just saying, hey, here's the weight, this is the plan, let's just fucking go.
Yeah, like Drew gets frustrated with me when we do deadlifts because he deadlifts 9,000 pounds and I am clearly not deadlifting 9,000 pounds. So in between every single set, I have to take like 100 freaking pounds off the bar from his prior lift to do mine. And I'm like, gee. He's like, lift more. I'm like, mother, like, dang, stop lifting so much dang weight.
I don't.
Okay, pick up like 5 of me.
I don't deadlift 9,000 pounds. That's a lie.
Yesterday he deadlifted 385. Imagine me having to take off weight because he's deadlifting 385. I can't do that. Sorry. He was like, Bryce, just learn how to lift more.
I will say her lifting more has improved after I started saying that. So there you go for motivation.
I hear you. Anyway.
As far as differences in strength, that's going to happen regardless. I was talking about like constantly having
to teach someone or show them,
somebody. Yeah, that does. I mean, you've had this before. How many people have been like, yeah, well, let's work out together, and then they show up like once or twice, and then that's it.
Yeah.
Like, all right, sure.
That happens, and I always want to encourage people to go to the gym when they don't know what to do or they're wanting to like start that journey. I never want to like discourage them from that. But just understand, I guess, or it's something that could be understood a little bit better, that when you ask your like gym friends that go a lot and stuff like that to go to the gym with you, if you're needing like a little bit of extra help or something like that, there is a lot of energy and explanation and time that has to be put into helping somebody do that, because you will be slowing down that process. So that's not to say like to discourage anybody from doing that, but you're either going to slow down their workout and their process and their goals, or they're just going to have to do their workout later and only focus on yours, which then you're basically treating them as if they're your personal trainer that's not getting paid. And some people might not mind doing that if you're really close friends and they're really invested in your health and your fitness, and they may have no issue with that. But just keep that in mind, because that's typically why people that are along the same like skill set or the same experience level go to the gym together. And it's not to be intimidating or to leave out people that aren't, but it's just it can I'm trying to find the best words without making it sound like insulting in any way, but
I think that the whole idea of people sticking with the people of their same experience kind of brings up a bit of a gatekeeping kind of look to it.
Right,
where it's
yeah.
like, we've been doing this, we're doing this together, this is our thing. Like, how dare you get involved with what we do? Which I don't think that should be how it should be perceived.
No.
But I think that's how it comes across with some people.
Right. And it's not that's not the intent.
No.
I wouldn't think, for most people. I think some people are just jerks and some people may actually feel that way.
Yeah.
But that's not the intent for at least someone like me or you or anything like that. It's just sometimes it can be difficult to keep your own speed, your own momentum going at a certain level if you're trying to, I guess, help another person whose is a lot different than yours. That's all. Yeah. But I'm still for super encouraging people in the gym, things like that are at a different skill level than you. Just like yesterday with Marie,
Mm-hmm.
and she came over to me like I was trying to hit the max that I had already hit before on bench, but it was struggled real hard with it the first time. So I was trying to do it again later on, and Marie came over while I was going to try it. Marie is freaking awesome, and like she was encouraging me to hit it. She was like, "Go, go, go," and she just hit 315, and I was trying to hit 145. So I'm going for a max of 145, and she's hit 315, and so she's like, "Go, go, go!" But then she, like, after she was encouraging of me and that, she goes off and she goes back to doing her thing. So I guess it's people of different skill sets and experiences can still encourage other people in the gym and be like, "That's awesome, you know, go do your thing." But you know, so people can still be encouraging of others without acting like they're gatekeeping.
Mm-hmm.
However, working out together, there are hindrances, like we were saying.
Yeah. Again, I it's always easier when you got a friend. That's just kind of what we've been saying for the past 5 minutes.
Yeah, I'm talking a lot. You might want to cut some of that out.
No, it's fine. It's a lot of really good information for people who just want to get into fitness and just don't know where to begin.
Mm-hmm.
Again, I say just start with a sport. A lot of gyms have basketball courts, or and a lot of people do pickup games. I mean, the gym we go to, every night there's like 15 people playing basketball on the courts, and it's just different people every night, just going in there, having fun, playing basketball. But
yeah, there's another location of ours that has their racquetball.
Mm-hmm. And there's always people doing that. It's just, there's a lot of ways to get into it, and I mean, once you're there, I mean, after you get done playing like 30 minutes of basketball or racquetball, just go hit the weights for a little bit, get some strength building going, and next thing you know, you'll be just like everybody else out there 4 or 5 times a week picking up weights and having fun. I mean, just don't become the gatekeeper.
Yeah.
For
Just do
people.
what makes you happy, ultimately. Like, if what makes you happy is weightlifting and being strong, go do it. If what makes you happy is like high endurance type things and a lot of output of energy through like cardiovascular activities, go do it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, if what makes you happy is like yoga and flexibility and stretching, like, do it. Whatever, just do an activity, you stay active every day, and like do what makes you happy, and like the skills and the experience level will come. And something to remember too, when you're like intimidated or seeing people that are like really comfortable in there and putting up weights that you can't even touch, they started somewhere.
Exactly.
Like, they started at a point, you know, I remember not knowing like what to do in the gym ever. I remember not knowing how to use any machines in the gym, and I was just like, I don't know what to do, and just randomly touching things and getting on them. And it's like, I remember that. And so like I could never judge another person that's at that point, because I was at that freaking point, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And I remember trying to squat and stuff for the first time and being so scared to do these things, and I mess up stuff all the time now. Like, every single time I try to move the dang barbell off the squat rack, I still bang the metal things. I still do embarrassing stuff in the gym all the time. I almost killed you the other day because I didn't put the 45-pound thing back on. And so, like, I mean, I do dumb stuff in there all the time. So, like, I mean, even people that are, like, really comfortable in the gym, and I'm not calling myself any expert in anything. I'm just fairly comfortable and a frequent gym goer. But, yeah, I do stuff that's embarrassing still every single day. So, it's, you know, nobody's above another person in
We
there.
both started around the same time, right? Going to the same gym. Like 5 years ago.
How many years ago? So probably about 5 years ago.
Yeah, because I remember seeing you in the gym, and like you were squatting like barely like 10 pounds on each side, and like I barely pick up 135, and now hour up here.
Look at us trying to hit PRs all the time.
We're trying to hit PRs all the time. But I do, as much as I complain about people being in the gym all the time, because you know how when it's busy it's hard to get what you want. It is good that more people try to better themselves, and
Yeah.
I think that's really that's one of the reasons why we started this, like to try to talk people into getting out there, bettering themselves, getting into something like fitness, or whether it be weights or sports, like something to get you moving, something to get you healthy. And if more people were like that, we'd have less problems in the world, you know?
Yeah, when the fitness community can be so much fun, like if you have the right people, because there are some douchebags in there. So there are some people that are like, I'm better than everyone else because I've got big muscles. Like, okay, bro, cool.
I will interrupt. Do you ever watch the bro science videos?
Like the guy that was like CrossFit, like that guy.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen
Like,
that one at least.
He obviously, like, it's a character for him.
Right.
But there are unironically people who are like that in the gym.
Let's bring up one and watch it right now while we're...
We'll bring it up in a second.
bring it up and watch it. He is funny.
He is funny.
He's
but,
just the stereotypes of gym bros. It's funny.
Yeah, he is funny. Well,
Let's
keep
refine him because
Well, I
he's funny.
find this.
But yeah, I mean, as much as there are like gym bros that are douchebags and stuff like that, there's still, for the most part, from what I've seen personally, I can't speak for every single gym or every area of the United States or the world, but the fitness community can be like really cool. This is not to like brag or sound arrogant, but like yesterday, this made me feel really good. We were leaving the gym yesterday, and I even was like, not even gonna lie, I had a little bit of a insecurity because I was wearing these new shorts and they're like really short, and I felt like they were like squeezing my thighs, and I just, all this kind of stuff, right? You know, just normal girl stuff that happens. This girl came up to me while I was at the water fountain filling up my bottle, and she was like, "You have amazing legs. What can I do to get legs like yours?" And I was like, "Thank you so much." So like the fitness community can be awesome. And I was watching this one girl deadlift the other day, 315, and I want to deadlift 315 so bad. And I was like, "You are a badass." So it can really be encouraging and a great community to be a part of. So yeah, come be a part of it. Just do it. Go in there. Be active.
Yeah, I agree. There's a lot of great people that work out. Like I said, there's always the D-bags, which...
It happens. It's everywhere.
And there's always like creepy dudes that are always... Especially if you're a girl, you're going to get creeped on pretty hard in the gym. I pretend she's my other girlfriend just to keep people away. I mean, it's...
My other girlfriend.
Yeah, other girlfriend, because my girlfriend sometimes will go with us too, so that would be weird.
It's really not that bad. There's one creepy person that I have to deal with, but like other than that, it's not. Yeah.
Throughout the years, there's been more.
It is what it is. But stereotypical bro science guy.
Oh yeah, let's bring this up.
He's funny.
I mean, this is just like.
He's funny.
He's funny, and there are some people that are unironically like this, which kind of...
You got it brought up on the thing?
Yeah.
Oh, there you go. Good job.
Some you hate because you're a hater, some you hate because even their parents hate them. But others, you hate because they're f***ing with your gains. Game rapists. These are the worst people in the gym. The guy who wants you to work out faster. F*** this old crab. He ain't working in for shit. It's always some old dude asking you how much you got left on set 1 and is always unhappy with the answer. Then he lingers around the entire time giving you the stink eye while you're cruising Instagram in between sets. Dumbledore, I'm not trying to catch your scabies from Ellis Island. He only wants you to work out faster because he's gonna die soon. The guy that wants to work in, even though it's gonna really complicate the exercise. You're over here doing squats, and this guy comes over asking to work in, and then after you agree, he springs it on you that he's gonna be doing bench with the safeties up. And then he asks you to help strip the weight and rearrange everything. You mind if I walk in, bro? You're gonna be doing bench if you don't mind. If you want to just strip all your weight off and throw the safeties up for me. Go ahead. This is like that friend that will ask you for a favor, but won't tell you what it is until after you reply. And now you're stuck being the godfather of his kid because it's too late to ignore his texts. Which is fine until your friend friend kicks the bucket, and now you're stuck taking care of his loser son, who's deaf gonna grow up to masturbate to dragons and shit. And that's on you now, bro. The guy who puts the weights back in the wrong spot.
So, yeah, this is funny, but there are people unironically like that at the gym.
Asks you to work in and then wants to join your squad.
Which, the thing is there are people. He makes fun of, like, such funny things in the gym. If you do, you know what, I'm going to give him a subscribe because, you know what?
You're going to subscribe
to him because he's funny and he deserves it. But, again, it's a character he plays, but unironically, there are people who are like that in the gym. But, like I said, the other one is... If you're a new person, I say the two best places to start, a YMCA or honestly a CrossFit gym. It's really, really easy to make fun of CrossFit gyms because...
Which you do all the time.
I do all the time, even though I went to one for a year. But
right.
I will say, though, as a community, I actually really enjoyed the people more than anything there.
It really is an encouraging, motivating, like, uplifting place to be in a CrossFit gym. I mean, people are... cheering you on like so hard to finish everything. They're motivating you. It's a pretty cool experience.
So my girlfriend likes to watch the CrossFit games like every year.
Oh, does she? Molly does that?
Yeah. But and they're like that the same way on there too. Is like, cause I'd never watched until me and her started dating because I didn't really care.
Yeah.
But even there, they're like super motivating with each other, even at the highest level. And it was just kind of funny. I was like, oh yeah, it's like kind of like exactly what we do when we were working out there. Just like very highly motivated people that are just cheering each other on, and one coach that's like, come on, you can do more. But it's I would say if you got, it's more expensive to go to one of those gyms, but if you have the disposable income, it's definitely worth it if you want to learn some basics and some fundamentals. There are some things that they do there I just, even after doing it for a year, I don't like. I don't like doing snatches. I don't like doing like thrusters and stuff. I would prefer just doing regular squats or
Kipping pull-up.
Kipping pull-ups? Oh no, they would actually make fun of me because I didn't do the kipping pull-ups. Like, you can even ask Molly. They're like, he would get like so many more reps if he would just, do the kipping part. I was like, yeah, I can't do that, and I just do strict arm pull-ups. But no, there's a lot you can do, and I encourage people to do that. So, how would you like to end today?
Get up and go to the gym. We're about to take some pre-workout, some creatine. Well, Drew's not going to take creatine. He's not allowed to take creatine. I'm going to take creatine.
My girlfriend yelled at me.
Yeah, Molly yelled at Drew. He's not allowed to take creatine. But my blood work came back okay, so I'm taking creatine.
It's really annoying when you have a girlfriend that wants you to live longer. It's like, God, why do I want to live longer? Come on.
Well, I don't have anyone that wants me to live longer, so I'm good to go. So I'm going to take my creatine and pre-workout and go to the gym. Which I actually did get told by the doctor to stop taking the pre-workout because my too much caffeine, like not as hydrated for the amount of caffeine that I have.
Drink more water. Also,
but what was I drinking to the beginning of this? An energy drink with 200 milligrams of caffeine and Alani.
Yeah, and on top of that, she's about to slam
pre-workout.
She's gonna dry scoop it.
I'm not gonna dry scoop it. Like, every time I try to dry scoop it, I'm sitting there like dying, like coughing powder out my mouth, just choking, and Drew's dying laughing, and I can't breathe. Legitimately cannot breathe, and I need like an ambulance, and he's laughing. So I know who I can depend on if I'm in a life or death situation.
You can depend on life or death situations.
That was a life or death situation.
You weren't gonna die.
No thanks to you.
Could have done the Heimlich maneuver if you were truly choking. But hey, if we get 100 subs, then Bryce will dry scoop and we'll put it on our channel.
What is with these today? On the last one, you said that if we got 10,000, I was gonna do a feet OnlyFans, and now you're saying if we get 100, I'm gonna dry scoop. Why is it that I have to do all the work?
We will dry scoop.
You're making
And
promises for
we
me.
will do a fee OnlyFans. Nobody wants to see my toes.
Oh my god.
But
How about if we get a certain amount, we'll do a live. That'll be fun. That'll be cool. We're trying to think of some ideas to do a live.
okay. We'll work it out, but it is up to the internet now, that YouTube algorithm, to push us to the top, which probably not going to happen. But with that, we're DB Chats, and let's go to the gym.